All right, everybody, we welcome you in live here on a Wednesday, the Justin Kinder Show presented by Frickers. We are off and rolling, and man, it's starting to feel like fall outside. I'm actually kind of a little disappointed in that. I'm already missing the warm weather, to be honest. I'm missing golfing. Well, I mean, you can still golf. I have been golfing, but I miss golfing in the warmer weather. Let's just put it that way. But let's stay on track. We got a lot to get into. Jason Fitz going to hop on with us coming up here momentarily. We'll talk all things Buckeyes, Bengals, and Browns. We'll get his take on the turnaround in Cincinnati ever since Joe Flacco arrived. We've seen Joe Flacco pull off, basically miracle type comebacks before in the state of Ohio when leading the Browns to the playoffs a few years ago. Can he do it again with the Bengals? We'll talk about that. How about Jason Fitz coming up here in just a moment? The NBA season officially tipped off last night. And, as far as the Dayton Flyers are concerned, there's 4 Dayton Flyers who are going to be, keeping us busy, keeping an eye on them throughout the NBA season. Of course, Deron Holmes getting set to make his NBA debut coming up on Thursday night. We'll talk about that. Tumani Kamara, of course, has just been having a fantastic career in the NBA, already getting a huge extension with the Trailblazers. We'll talk about when you could see him play. Kobe Bryant, although drafted out of Kentucky, spent most of his career in college at UD, as you guys know. We're going to get a chance to see him coming up this week as well. So we'll talk about all, and then Obi Toppin, who just played in the NBA Finals last year with the Pacers, will be in action soon as well. We'll highlight all 4 of those individuals coming up here momentarily. But I want to get into this because I'm getting really tired of, I'm not going to act like I've never once said that I was against the pay-for-play stuff. From a fan perspective, I just wanted sports to stay the way that they were, but we all knew that things were going to change at some point. NIL, of course, is here. The transfer portal, everything, and I'm over standing in place and complaining and yelling about stuff as everything just passes you by. That's how you become the get off my lawn guy. And I'm not young anymore, but I'm not old. At 35, I don't want to be the get off my lawn guy. Sometimes you just have to accept stuff for what they are. And Nick Saban is one of my favorite media personalities right now. My gosh, I think he was great for college football as a coach, and I wish he would go back to coaching, but I also think he's fantastic in his analyst role on College Game Day. I think he's phenomenal. But what I'm also tired of is blaming the pay-for-play, NIL, transfer portal, blaming that for all of college athletics problems when we all know that there have always been problems in the college athletics landscape, whether the pay-for-play existed or not. Whether the legal pay-for-play or the illegal pay-for-play, there's always been something. To sit there and act like, okay, you're a school that has more scholarships than others, pay for play. You may not have liked what you were being compensated with, but you were still being compensated with scholarships. There's always been something in it. There's always been, if we're going to give you scholarships, you need to perform for us or we will move on from you. That's just common sense. Even in working in AM radio like me, if I don't do my job, they will fire me. If I don't do what I'm supposed to, if I don't give them the results that they're looking for, and apparently I have for 10 years, maybe it'll catch up with me at some point, but they will fire me if I don't do what I'm supposed to. That is life. That's how all of this works, and Nick Saban knows that. So why Nick Saban is saying something as ridiculous as this is insane. ESPN put out an article yesterday highlighting a soundbite from Nick Saban on Game Day this past Saturday when he sat down with James Franklin, who did his exclusive interview on Game Day, as he basically starts his recovery tour, just trying his image recovery tour. Former Alabama coach Nick Saban said that he isn't surprised by the recent string of high-profile firings in college football because fans and alumni who donate money to programs are more influential than ever thanks to name, image, and likeness deals and revenue sharing. You mean to tell me that if name, image, and likeness didn't exist and revenue sharing didn't exist, that Penn State wouldn't have moved on from James Franklin, who just year after year after year underachieves. Like, what are we doing here? We got to stop blaming name, image, and likeness for everything. If you think that James Franklin, if you would take this run that James Franklin and Penn State is on now, and you would have put this 10 years ago before name, image, and likeness, he still would have been fired. Because guess what? You act like expectations have only begun because of name, image, and likeness. No, there should have been expectations from the athletics department and the school itself, even without name, image, and likeness. I am so sick of hearing people blame name, image, and likeness for everything. James Franklin got fired because he had a national championship contending team. They were the favorites to win the national championship, and They didn't even lose in the playoff. These were the debates about Penn State coming into the season. I kept asking, even when I was doing Chatterbox with my guys over there, shout out to Elliot and Jacob, Casey, and the guys, when we were doing the show together there, when I was doing the show with Kev, Jason Fitz, we've talked about it with him. How many games in the playoff does Penn State have to win for it not to be considered a failure of a season? I've always said it's not fair to put a national championship or bust label on any team because of how long the playoff is now. It's not just beat one team or two teams. You have to win 4 games plus a conference championship, plus, remain as perfect as possible in the regular season. So the talk about Penn State coming into the season was how many games do they have to win in the playoff for it not to be considered a bust of a season, considering they had championship expectations? Well, guess what? I do know this. We all kind of varied on our answers, but nobody said 0, and 0 is what the amount of games that they're going to even play in the playoffs is. James Franklin deserved to be let go at Penn State. Yes, they won a lot, but yet that's like the bare minimum. One of the bare minimum things. I've told you guys this before. There's some things that just are expected in a job. I had a former coworker here when I started 10 years ago, and he was late all the time. And he wasn't late like by a half hour, 45 minutes. He would just, we'd have to be here at 8, and he'd show up at 8:06, 8:11, 8:04. And it's not majorly late. You know what I mean? Like you're still there at 8 a.m. Did your work responsibilities not get done because you showed up at 8:04 versus 8 or 8:11 versus 8? No. But it's just annoying, right? And bosses hate that. And I remember my boss at the time told that coworker of mine, like, he would actually be less frustrated if you were a half hour to an hour late because that means something major went wrong in the morning. But you mean to tell me you couldn't get up 4 minutes earlier, 5 minutes earlier, 11 minutes earlier? Like those little things. And I've always thought of stuff like that. I've always looked at it like that way moving forward. Like, yeah, if you're going to be 2 minutes, 3 minutes late, it is annoying. You couldn't have moved 2 minutes quicker in the morning, got up 2 minutes early. I get that. So this coworker, after being told that, ended up being on time for work for like 2 weeks straight, but started messing up some other stuff. And I remember because his little desk was right next to mine, boss going off on him about something about a project that he messed up. And he said, well, you're making a big deal out of nothing. I mean, anytime you've asked me to work on something, I've worked on it. I haven't been late to work in 2 weeks. And my boss snapped on him and said, you should never have to brag about being to work on time. There are some things that are just expected of you that you shouldn't have to brag about to your boss, and your boss shouldn't have to mark it on a chart that, well, he's always on time. There are just some basic expectations that just naturally come with any job. And to me, that's college football with head coaches and winning. And well, Penn State, he won a lot of games. You should win a lot of games. You're Penn State. You have a rich history there. You have a lot of very good resources. You have a lot of really good players. You put a lot of players in the league. Winning, yeah, you've done a lot of that. Congratulations. I'm not going to congratulate you on winning a lot of games. That's what you're supposed to do. It's the games that you're going above and beyond. It's the games that you're supposed to win. You're supposed to beat Ohio State from time to time. You're supposed to beat Michigan from time to time. You're supposed to win a Big Ten title from time to time. And some of those things have been accomplished, but overall, you got to win a national championship. And that's just something James Franklin never proved that he was even capable of coming close to being able to do. So I don't want to hear that James Franklin won a lot of games. He didn't win a Big Ten championship. Okay. He didn't do that. All right. He didn't beat Ohio State. The 2 games that he won in the playoff last year, I get that. Oh, man, he won some playoff games last year. We're all we all know the draw that he got in the playoffs last year was set up for Penn State to get to where they did. Those, I don't want to hear it. Nick Saban blaming the players and blaming the pay-to-play NIL and all this other stuff. That's not why James Franklin got fired. He got fired because he couldn't beat Ohio State. He couldn't win a Big Ten championship. And even when he had the most loaded roster in the conference, the most experienced roster in the conference, he couldn't even get to the 12-team playoff. Indiana's about to get there for the second straight year. Vanderbilt's getting there. BYU's getting there. And you with the most experienced roster, loaded roster, NFL talented roster, national championship expected roster couldn't get there, and Nick Saban's pissed because Penn State decided that enough is enough. This wasn't just because you didn't do this, we're firing you for 1 year. It's based on all the stuff that they've come up short throughout the James Franklin era. Harbaugh had a reputation of not being able to win the big game. He, of course, almost got canned, and then he beat Ohio State, would go on to win a few straight, wins a national championship. Harbaugh saved his job at that point. Ryan Day, we were questioning a year ago at this time, and I know me, he can't win the big game. He can't win in the SEC. He can't win bowl games. He can't even win his rivalry game anymore. And you want me to be excited because he beats up on Rutgers? But guess what? Ryan Day leads his Buckeyes into December. They kick the crap out of Tennessee. Glad I said that. I almost don't know why. I never cuss on the air like to that degree where I can get in trouble. I almost slipped there. ADD. Focus. Okay. They beat the crap out of Tennessee. They blow out undefeated number one team in the country, Big Ten champion Oregon in the Rose Bowl in a game that I was at. And then they go to Texas and they beat Texas in Dallas and they take care of Texas there and take care of them. And then they beat Notre Dame. Now Ryan Day, and then they beat Texas in week 1 of the regular season. They beat Illinois, top 25 team at Illinois. Like now, all Ryan Day does is win big games. James Franklin had more than a fair share of an opportunity to prove that he could win big games, and he just couldn't do it. Ryan Day did. Harbaugh did. Franklin couldn't get off the mat. So the fact that Nick Saban is blaming name, image, and likeness for the high-profile firings. I mean, Billy Napier, what have you done at Florida? You haven't done a damn thing at Florida. I don't feel bad. James Franklin, I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad for any of these coaches because these coaches are held to a standard like all of us. You do your job and you do it well, you'll keep it. If you don't do your job and don't do it well, you're going to lose it. That's life. That's life. Stop blaming the athletes. Stop blaming NIL. Stop blaming all that other garbage. It is what it is. All right, I'm Justin Kinner with you here. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Jason Fitz from Yahoo Sports, he joins us next. We'll talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. All right. We'll talk about the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Flacco and the success of the Bengals with Joe Flacco in just a short amount of time. But we'll talk about that with Jason Fitz. Is it almost Shedeur time? Is it time for Shedeur in Cleveland? Have we seen enough of Dylan Gabriel yet? We'll talk about that with Fitzy as well. Plus, Ohio State. Has this been a boring season? Has this season been boring? I don't know if you guys caught the clip from Barstool earlier. I found it very entertaining. And I don't think that they're wrong when they talk about how boring it can be to be a Buckeye fan at times. We'll talk about all of that with Jason Fitz and more coming up. 937-518-1410. We'll get to more of your calls coming up here shortly. Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports, joins us next.
The Justin Kinner Show, right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, and we are back. It's the Justin Kinner Show live here on a Wednesday, 937-518-1410. Appreciate the calls today. We'll get back to your calls more coming up here in just a moment. Ohio State on a bye as they prepared for Penn State, not the top 5 showdown that we technically anticipated coming into the season, but an important game for Ohio State as it's, of course, not this weekend, but the following weekend, the final matchup before the very first college football playoff rankings come out. And we'll talk more about that coming up here in a moment. Joe Flacco and nope, not the Browns, not the Ravens, but his AFC North tour continues. The Bengals preparing for the Jets, a winless Jets team coming up on Sunday. The Bengals have a chance to even their record back up at 500. That's obviously what we opened up the show talking about, and we'll continue on with that with friend of the show, Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports, who joins us now. Jason, happy Wednesday. Welcome.
Thanks. And by the way, it's crazy you mentioned Ohio State on a bye. I don't remember the last time a number 1 team in the country felt as forgotten as Ohio State is right now. We're talking about the chaos of college football on Yahoo Sports Daily. We're literally talking tomorrow about the fact that or is all this chaos for naught? Ohio State's clearly the best team in the country. So look, you got something to celebrate there.
Yeah, and some of that is it doesn't help that Penn State, obviously, we know the drama that surrounded them. This matchup a week from Saturday is not the matchup that we had anticipated. But while we're on it, we'll start with this. I said already that the Penn State matchup still kind of scares me, only because you're playing a team that has nothing else to play for. Penn State, they don't give a damn what happens the rest of the season. If they could, with all the chaos and with all the underperforming that they've done, they could somehow find a way just to ruin Ohio State's little run. Not that it would knock them out of the playoffs or anything, but if they could find a way just to put a dent in their armor, that would make their season, considering the hell that they've been through. Ohio State, not that they won't come out prepared to play, but Penn State, this is their Super Bowl. They're going all out to try to just salvage what's left of this season.
100%. And let's remember, Penn State was where they were when the season started because of the way we perceived the talent, right? So as much as James Franklin's unemployed because they underperformed, let's be real, they should still be able to play at a higher level. The question is, do you get a super engaged Penn State or an already checked out, I'm thinking about transfer portal and spending my NIL money Penn State? That's what we'll find out in that game. But yeah, 100%. It's I think also these moments are just important because even if Penn State isn't regarded the way that they were, Penn State is going to be regarded by the College Football Playoff Committee as a quality opponent. They'll look at that and say, hey, still a lot of talent on that roster, as the committee always does. So I think it's a big opportunity for Ohio State, who, by the way, I think will roll in that game.
What's your perception of the Big Ten? 3 of the top 6 teams in the AP right now are out of the Big Ten, but I thought the Big Ten was deeper. I thought, obviously, and this is the problem, like when Illinois will lose to an Ohio State, and obviously you look at some of these teams right there in the middle, they just don't look as strong right now as what we thought coming into the season, as we are just 2 weeks out from the first rankings for the playoff to come out. How strong is the Big Ten right now? Obviously top heavy, but where does it rank amongst some of the others right now? Is it starting to look weaker as the season goes on?
Look, I wouldn't be surprised at all if the national champion comes from the Big Ten, obviously. That being said, the depth of the conference is the reason that people aren't paying attention. I'm sorry. This is just I'm the farthest thing from an SEC homer. I have no allegiance to any of it. I just love chaos. You can't tell me the middle class of the SEC right now isn't better than the middle class of the Big Ten. It just is what it is. I never bought into Illinois in the first place. I can't figure out how we could possibly be living in a college football landscape where Georgia Tech and Vandy and BYU have figured it out and Wisconsin can't. And that's bad for the conference long term, right? So while I believe that Indiana, Ohio State, and Oregon are, clearly, I think all 3 of those teams today are better than the best that the SEC will give us. I would take any 3 of those on a neutral field in a game against, let's say, Alabama, for sure. Doesn't change the fact that at some point, part of the way that you get street cred from everybody is watching epic games. You spend time watching Ole Miss, Georgia, and you say, okay, yeah, that was exciting. That was a good football game, right? We're not offered that opportunity from the next tier of the Big Ten right now, which is part of the reason people aren't giving enough love to the top. I think 2 things can be true. I think the middle class can be trying to find their footing, and the top of the top can still be better than everybody. I'm not sleeping on Oregon still to win it all even. So I think all 3 of the best could contend, but there's a depth issue. Nobody really believes Michigan's the 25th best team in the country, right? That's just a broken football team.
And while we're with the Big Ten, Indiana, I know we talked about them last week about whether, they finally had that win that kind of makes you, scoot up in your seat and take them a lot more serious. They play Michigan State, not a good team this past weekend, but they made them look like not a good team. 38-13, they take care of Michigan State. They actually have a very competitive UCLA team coming up. But Indiana now sitting in that number 2 spot after Miami's loss this past weekend. I know they had the win over Oregon, but Cignetti, Indiana, last year was just a good story of them making the playoff. It's anticipated that they'll make the playoff this year, but now it's different because there's expectations. It's a cute, fun story that they skyrocket up and they're in the top 2, top 3 again. But do you think that, what's the next layer for in Indiana as far as getting people to take them serious? I mean, what do they have to do? Obviously run the table the rest of the way, get to the playoff, but like Indiana's being viewed at differently right now. And a lot of that has to do, and all of it has to do with Kirk Cignetti at this point.
I think they got to either win the Big Ten title game, like beating an Ohio State for the Big Ten title. People would step back and take note, or they have to win a significant college football playoff game against a well-regarded team. And that's a very specific thing to lay out. But like, I would make the case that Indiana right now is where Gonzaga basketball was a few years ago, where it was like, oh, that's cute. Gonzaga's doing this thing. And then after a few years, you're like, oh, wait, no, this actually isn't cute. This is a real football team that we have to pay attention to. I think Indiana is going to be a real football team and a problem for the entire college football world for the next several years. I believe in what they built there, and I believe in the way that they're funding it. That's just one of the big things. Like when you talk about Indiana and Vanderbilt being the way they are, it's because the money is being put behind these programs to be where they are. Like, Vandy's a great example of people are sitting and saying, how the hell did Vandy get this good? And I talked to people around it. Well, they got that good because once they started to commit some money to resources, to facilities, and then they started going to a very well-off alumni and saying, hey, we want to have a better football team. What do you know? There were enough wealthy alums that said, all right, well, we'll put some millions into this. And all of a sudden, modern college football, you get what you pay for. So, I think Indiana is getting what they're paying for. I think they're long-term a legit new power in the college football landscape. I think they have to win a big game against like an Ohio State to prove that this year.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to bring up is the fact that, Cignetti is a problem for college football because he goes to the losingest program in the history of college football and gets him to the playoff. Basically, the first 2 years, again, a lot could change. Penn State was a national championship favorite a month ago, and now look. So, but as if we sit here right now, but Cignetti comes in and everything turns around. It was a fundamental shift of the university, of the athletics department, of the program itself. I look at a Luke Fickell over at Wisconsin. His shine is going to be so washed off by the time he's done in Wisconsin that he won't be viewed at the same as when he was coming out of Cincinnati. Did he fail? I mean, kind of, but Wisconsin failed him as well. They didn't do their part. I mean, the fact that Indiana can come up and do what they're doing, there's really no excuse when you look over at a Wisconsin and you look over at a lot of these teams and say, okay, Colorado's and these others, obviously you need the name of the coach. You need a good coach. Yes. But if you're not doing your part to support the coach financially, just like the pros now, none of this is going to matter. None of this is going to work.
Yeah. At the end of the day, if you're in a cooking competition and I'm going out and I'm using coupons to get 3-week-old, sirloin that's all chewy, and somebody else walks in with the best steak quality meat you've ever seen, who's more likely to win that competition? You got to have the money to buy the groceries. And that's modern college football. You got to have the money to buy the groceries. So, Indiana is doing a good job of that, but they also are doing a good job of identifying talent. That's where North Carolina went wrong. North Carolina spent the money. They gave the money to the wrong people who did a bad job of identifying the talent. And all of a sudden, North Carolina sucks. So I think, the fine line on all of it, but Indiana is the problem for everybody. Indiana is also, at this point, new realm of college football. Like, look, everybody keeps talking about Lane Kiffin leaving Ole Miss for Florida. In fact, why? If you really want to be honest here for a second, Lane Kiffin lost a game on Saturday and nobody today is calling for his job. So he makes $9.3 million a year. He makes about what he would make in Florida. They might pay him $500,000 more. He makes about the same money. If he loses a big game in conference that everybody expected him to win, it's like, oh, shucks, man, we'll get him next time. And he came into that game with the number 5 team in the country. So now that you can win a national championship anywhere, as long as they have the money and the facilities, I mean, what's going to become interesting is the Kurt Cignettis of the world no longer need to go to the Penn States of the world to have the landmark. Like Kurt Cignetti is in a better situation today. Indiana is a better job right now than Penn State. And that's because Kurt Cignetti has done that. He's built it into that. So why go rebuild it just because old college football heads will tell you that Penn State's a bigger brand? Now more than ever, history does not matter in college football. It's irrelevant. Like the history of your franchise, your program is a cute story for the old people that donate the money. It doesn't matter to the 18-year-olds that are taking the bags of cash. It doesn't matter to the TV companies that are giving out the bags of cash. It doesn't matter to anybody. So like if your answer is, well, we're Florida, damn it, we're better. No, you aren't. Not in the modern landscape. It's not better anything than Ole Miss can offer with Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, look, we talked about that, like when the Penn State job opened up about, who could be in line for that one. Now Florida's open, and you would think that some of these jobs would be hot commodities that a lot of big names would be not signing extensions with their teams, even if it's for more money, because they know they can get more money at the next stop that they're going to, whether it be Florida or elsewhere. But it just doesn't seem like any of these jobs opening up are hot situations. I mean, they're chaotic and a mess right now. Some coaches find themselves in a better spot where they're currently at, even though the name of the program is a bigger or better, sounding program like a Florida or whatever. I'm very curious to see what Florida does, because moving on from Napier, when they did, even after a win, it just seems like, okay, do they have a plan in place? Some of these programs, I don't feel like there's a plan in place. And that's what's interesting about Florida, unless they do. And we're just sitting back waiting for what that's going to be.
I mean, there are jobs out there. Like if you Drinkwitz, Florida is a better spot than Missouri right now, right? Like if you're Lance Leipold, Florida is a better spot than Kansas. There are plenty of like that sort of coach. But if your answer is, well, we're going to go get Marcus Freeman, why? And the answer Florida fans always give is, well, better recruiting here. I mean, I talk to high school kids all the time that are part of recruiting classes. And one thing that most high school kids are getting in their deals from the day they sign are first-class tickets for their families to fly in and out, if not private jets, to fly in and out of the game every week. So even if your answer is, well, it's better recruiting here. Okay, then insert school A over here will just offer a bunch of cash, and we'll figure out, hey, you're going to make more money here. We're going to win a bunch of football games here. We'll fly your mom and dad in first class every weekend so that they can see every one of your games. All of a sudden, those recruiting edges that you think they have just don't matter.
Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports. As you know, in football, quarterback's very, very important, and it's kind of funny how Cincinnati, they get the Bengals, they get a quarterback now, and now the line knows how to block, the running backs know how to run, and defense looks better, and Zach Taylor all of a sudden knows how to coach again. It's just kind of crazy how that works out. The AFC North is usually always the most interesting division in football for all the right reasons. I think it's the most interesting division in football this year for all the wrong reasons. I don't think it's very, very good, but because it's not very, very good, it's opened the door back up for a team like the Bengals. The Steelers, they're interesting, but they're still vulnerable as far as all this concerned. The Ravens have won one game. They get Lamar back. They'll be maybe right back in this thing as well. The Bengals, Joe Flacco, the Steelers, last Thursday night football. It was after you and I had spoke last week. What the heck was that? I'm scooting back in the chair, and I'm starting to buy in to the Bengals with Joe Flacco a little bit. Joe Flacco is a professional. He's a smart quarterback, and when you give him weapons like that, he can cook, and he cooked last Thursday against the Steelers.
He's doing a really good job of seeing what's coming and then stepping back from the minute. Like they're doing a nice job. He's in shotgun. He's backpedaling before he's even throwing the football. So he's mitigating some of the damage that the offensive line could do when they're not playing particularly well. Man, and he's just seeing the blitz before it comes to him. So, like, it's cool to see what he's doing. It's maddening for Browns fans, I'm sure, to see, all of this and say, well, why couldn't Stefanski get that out of him? I at some point, it makes a difference when your basic offense is take 3 steps back and then fling a ball up to Jamar or T. Like, that's just a different way to live, right? Like, we keep talking about how great the Cowboys offense looks this year. It does. The Cowboys offense looks incredible this year because they've got their own Jamar T type situation where Dak just got to see what's coming, find the mismatch, and fling the ball to the right guy. So I think part of what's working here for Flacco is that he's got the expertise, he's got the knowledge, he can see it, and then he can just use whatever he's got left in his arm to fling it to somebody that's going to have a better matchup for him. So, yeah, the Bengals are absolutely afloat now. And don't look now, but the AFC's been so hot garbage. Like, all they got to do is stay afloat until Burrow gets back. If they can do that, my God, of course, they're going to find themselves right back in the playoff conversation, which is, like, maddening to think of how poorly this has all been handled, and they could still find themselves right in the thick of the playoffs.
Joe Burrow better than Joe Flacco. There's no doubt about it, but there has been an obvious difference in how the offense looks with Joe Flacco versus Joe Burrow. Not that it's better, but they look less flawed, as silly as that sounds, mainly because some of the knocks on Burrow have been the fact that he always wants the home. When you have Jamar Chase and T, he puts, his offensive line's not great, but he also doesn't put them in position to be successful because he likes to let plays draw out. He wants to go for the home run play every time. Flacco says, home run ball be damned. I just need to get it out of my hands and get it to the playmakers. The offensive line, I don't think it's magically better, but they've looked better because of just how quickly he gets it out of his hands. Assuming that this continues, the success for Flacco moving forward, I mean, that's going to be a point of emphasis that they have to sit down with Burrow and talk about, right? Because it's just one game, 2 games, I get that, but it does look vastly different. when they get the ball to the hands quicker, as opposed to trying going for the home run ball every time. And by the way, not going for the home run ball this past week against the Steelers, it didn't prevent Jamar Chase from getting his, because it was a record-setting performance that night from a targets and catch and yard perspective. He had an unbelievable night.
I think it's a mentality when you've been in the league for a long time and you've taken a lot of hits. Man, I just want to live to see another down. And that's what Flacco's doing really well. I'm just going to live to see another down. Burrow is very much like, this is my opportunity. I'm going to make a play, which is part of what makes him special. But at some point, you do just have to live to see another down. And we associate that in a lot of offenses with, just check down and figure it out, or throw the ball away and figure it out. With this particular offense, because of how good those two wide receivers are, and frankly, I think they've got quality play at the tight end position too, it allows opportunities for, hey, I see the matchup. I'm going to take advantage of the matchup, and then I'm just going to live to see another down. Like, the ability for Flacco to say, what I don't want on this play is to get hit, is the biggest difference. And that's just not how Burrow is wired. Hopefully, by watching all of this, which he is obviously, and by seeing it and studying it, hopefully he's seeing the advantage to it. But the nature's still the nature, right? Like, some quarterbacks are still natured to run, even after we sit there and say, don't run, right? Some quarterbacks are natured to hold on to the ball and try and make something happen. He's going to have to get on the field and work through that, in my mind. But you're right. I think the Bengals offense would be better if he was choosier about when he wants to hold the ball to actually take that big chance.
Excuse me. Trade deadline, not too far off around the corner. I wish the trade deadline was further back. I know they did move it back technically because of the 17th game that they added, so they moved it back by a week. But in a sport like football, with how physical it is and the amount of injuries that could just come up so quickly, and I've said this about baseball as well, I wish that trade deadlines were moved back so that you could almost set up a sprint to the finish line. We know how in the NBA, the trade deadline just almost reinvigorates the season, and it just gets people's excitement to go back in. And there's only like a month and a half of the season left after the NBA trade deadline. I wish NFL, Major League Baseball kind of had that same mentality a bit, and I think it's going to be very chaotic. I think there's so many front offices right now who are confused because there's a difference between being mathematically in it and realistically in it. And I think there's a lot of teams who are mathematically in it, but not realistically in it, and trying to decipher where you fall on that scale. You're asking a lot of owners to say, yeah, we're not good. And that's a tough decision to make if you're an owner in a front office. I wish the trade deadline was pushed back a bit because I think there's a lot of confused franchises out there right now. I think Cincinnati could potentially be one of those.
I mean, yeah, what are you supposed to do? If you're the Bengals, who I think have a very reasonable shot of winning 2 of the next 3, if not all 3 of the next 3, now you're sitting at 500 ball. Right? Like, you're not trading Trey Hendrickson when you're sitting at 500 ball and you have a real shot at the playoffs, but you also have some games coming up near the end of the schedule that are really difficult. You'd love to have a better idea of where you fall to see if you can get anything from somebody that may want to rent Trey Hendrickson down the stretch of the season, like the Cowboys, right? So you just don't quite know where you fall. You're right. Pushing it later would make a ton of sense. And especially now that, like, look, it's the sort of the weird underbelly of the NFL people aren't talking enough about for this second straight year, that we have a bunch of teams that are dreadful, like awful, like terrible. Think about last year. I think it was a dozen teams lost double-digit games last year. That's over a third of the league lost double-digit games. You start looking across the landscape of how many teams right now are 2-5 or worse, and it's a reminder there's a bunch of bad, but there's this middle class that doesn't know, because there's so much bad in the AFC. Yep. You can be sitting at 2-5 and say, no, there's still a path that gets us to the playoffs. Then you don't want to dump talent. So you're right. It needs to move back, especially because we are in such a divisive, like, have and have nots world of the NFL right now.
As far as the Browns go, that speaking of those two win teams, yeah, I have to be a real fan. I went and I stood in a monsoon in Cleveland, tailgating before the game, drinking during the game, and I still felt it up until yesterday. I can't do what I used to anymore. I have not been the same human for a few days. Cleveland will do that to you. But, hey, at least I got to see them get a win. Look, that defense, we know how good that defense is. Quinshawn, to move on from a Nick Chubb and potentially find his replacement so quick, Cleveland's very fortunate there. They have some young stars from this recent draft that make them feel very promising. But the one that they need to get the most out of is their quarterback in Dylan Gabriel. And I listened to a lot of sports talk over in Cleveland the last couple of days, and they've had some heated debates. Ken Carman and those guys, shout out to them. But they were like, okay, he's not turning the ball over, but he's not attacking the ball down the field. He doesn't have wide receivers, so that doesn't help. But it's like, what is good football? I almost would rather have a quarterback that's going to throw a pick here and there, but also put you in position to throw it down the field and score, versus the guy that doesn't throw any interceptions like Dylan Gabriel, but also doesn't really give you a chance to score either. It's a little bit of give and take. There's no give and take at all with Dylan Gabriel. Sure, he doesn't turn the ball over, but man, you just have no confidence in this offense. Maybe it's not all on him, But could we see a Shedeur change here, especially with the bye week coming up after this Patriots game this weekend?
No, it's Dylan's team moving forward. And
Okay.
Here's the other thing I would say. Go back and watch the takes nationally. Some of my shows talked a lot about it last year, a month into Jaden Daniels. And we were actually mocking Jaden Daniels because at that point, a month into his rookie season, if you looked at his average yards per attempt, it was actually less than 1. There were so many passes at or behind the line of scrimmage. Cliff Kingsbury's whole approach was, I'm going to get you comfortable. And every week we're going to allow just a little bit more of the offense. And we're going to give you just a little bit more to trust. I think that's kind of what the Browns are doing with Dillon Gabriel. You're right. They're keeping it safe, not making mistakes. I think they're just getting him comfortable with reading what he's seeing, adjusting to the speed of the offense, adjusting to the speed of the defense, and trying to figure out like where exactly throws need to be in the NFL. It's exactly what happened with Jaden last year, and it was a brilliant strategy. Now, again, a month in, even 6 weeks into Jaden, it was like, man, are they ever going to, can the kid even throw the football? And then all of a sudden, boom, unflowered, and everybody's like, this is a delight. I think that's the plan for what Cleveland's doing. And everybody I've talked to that I think has any good knowledge on the working situation around the Browns has echoed the same thing. Dillon Gabriel will have to lose the job for him to not start. For them to put Shedeur in, Dillon's going to have to lose it. I think what you're seeing here is the coaching staff is protecting enough to make sure that they don't end up with quarterback controversy, that they see if Dillon can actually over time just adjust. I'll be more concerned if we're in December and we're talking about the same thing, because then the coaches are telling you they just don't trust him. But until we get through another month of Dillon Gabriel just getting rid of the ball, you're right. In 2 seconds, it's like, well, there's a dump down. No, I'm just going to check it down over here. Check it down over here. Wide open guy over here. I'll check it there. Never going to push the ball down the field. I think that's what they're coaching him to do right now. And I think that's part of why everybody I've talked to around Cleveland continues to say the Browns are happy with where he is. They're happy with the progression of him. Doesn't feel good to Browns fans. I just think Browns fans may not have understood coming into the year that the organization understood that this was completely a development year. This was not a win football games year. This was completely a development year.
All right, good stuff. Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports, awesome enough to give us time each and every week throughout the college football and NFL season. Jason, you the man. Tell everyone where they could find you on all your football coverage throughout the week and weekend.
Yeah, Yahoo Sports Daily. Hang out with us every single day on YouTube. We're out there also wherever you get your free TV, like Roku. We've got channels for Yahoo Sports, and then also yahoosports.tv, 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern. And then Saturdays, hang out with Fox Sports Radio every Saturday from.
All right, good stuff. Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports. Jason, you the man. Appreciate you as always.
Have a great week.
All right, the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits. 937-518-1410, the number to call and jump in on the conversation. We'll be right back. All right, good stuff from Jason Fitz from Yahoo Sports. We talked Ohio State, Bengals, Browns, all that fun stuff. And if you missed it, we'll have that again for you coming up here later on in the program. So, a lot to still get into. I do want to pick up at the conversation that we opened up the show with about Nick Saban's comments, blaming NIL for all of the high-profile firings. High-profile coaches get fired all the time. Blaming NIL for that is ridiculous. I have no clue what the motive of that was behind Nick Saban. I mean, Nick Saban's a coach, and he's going to take the coach's side. Nick Saban was fortunate to be such a high-profile coach. He was at another level where he never had to worry about being fired. And he leaves LSU to go to the NFL. He got fired in the NFL, obviously. But as far as the college is concerned, I mean, he's blaming NIL for why high-profile coaches are getting fired. It's not NIL. It's just called expectations. If you have expectations to win a national championship, expectations to be a title contender, you're expected to do your damn job and go out there and do it. It has nothing to do with that. I have no clue why that was the thing. David Shaw weighed in on this in the comment section. And for those watching, I'll blow that up so you could see it. David Shaw said, well, how did Penn State acquire said roster? I know what you are saying, but you can't deny that it raised the expectations. Both could be true at the same time. Yes, he couldn't win the big game, but the money has heightened the expectations and timeline. What are you talking about, Shaw? He's been there for 12 years. 12 years we've done the same song and dance with Penn State. 12 years they're always highly ranked coming into the season, and for 12 years they always underperform. What elevated timeline are you talking about? NIL didn't increase the timeline. And name, image, and likeness, as far as the roster is concerned for Penn State, I mean, in the last 10 years, going back to 2015, actually I have from 2015 to now, Penn State's only had 2 top 10 recruiting classes. 2 top 10 recruiting classes. They've always been overranked when the season starts. I believe back in the middle of the summer, I need to go back and find it. ESPN, or it was one sports outlet, had put out a piece on the most overrated programs in college football based on where you're at in the preseason rankings and where you finish. And consistently, USC and Penn State were always at the highest of that list because they're always ranked really, really high, and they always finish significantly further back than what they were anticipated to when the season starts. Now, we can mock the preseason rankings all you want, but the bottom line is this team always has expectations coming in. That's the point. And they've always had high expectations coming into a season, even before NIL really started to take over. So to blame NIL for heightened expectations, I don't believe that there's heightened expectations. I believe that all these Penn State's always expected and wanted to be a national championship contender. Had Ryan Day lost, if Ryan Day would have lost to Tennessee in the first round of the playoffs last year, after the 4th straight loss to Michigan, and he lost his job, I don't think that I would have sat back and said, oh man, I think Ohio State rushed that firing. It would have made sense. He could not win any big game. It seemed the last big game Ryan Day had won until the playoff last year was Clemson in the playoff game back in 2020. He had lost every big game after that, including getting his doors blown off in the national championship against Alabama that same season. And from then on, constant losses to Michigan, constant losses in bowl games, losses against, Missouri. The 2 times they faced Oregon, losing both of them. Like, let's not sit here and act like had Ohio State moved on from Ryan Day last November, that anyone would have said, well, I think that was a quick judgment. No, Ohio State has expectations to win and to win the big games and to win national championships. Brian said, FYI, Saban was not fired by Miami. He quit. Yes, you are right. My apologies on that. I did get that wrong. So thank you for that one. But it didn't go well, even though people do forget he did finish above 500 that season. But, something about when players want to kick your ass, all of a sudden you do want to kind of get you do want to kind of get the hell out of there really quickly, I'm assuming. But yeah, Brian, thank you for that one. But no, this conversation started when we opened the show about Nick Saban blaming NIL for the high profile firings. As far as that goes, the exact quote, and I have it for you here. I'm not surprised. This is from Nick Saban. I'm not surprised because everybody's raising money to pay players. So the people that are giving the money think they have a voice and they're just like a bunch of fans. When they get frustrated and disappointed, they put pressure on the athletic directors to take action, and it's the way of the world. But like that's also I'm also questioning the athletic directors at that point. So you need the fans to tell you to do it. You need the donors to tell you to do it. I don't have respect for athletic directors who let donors tell them what to do. And yes, that's a direct shot at someone here locally. I'll just leave it at that. When athletic directors don't have the guts or the ability to make their own decisions and they let the donors run the program, then maybe those donors should be the athletic director then instead of the one that pretends to be, as far as that goes. But I'll just leave that there and I'll let you guys do with that what you will. But I completely disagree. I don't think that Penn State moved on from James Franklin because, donors got restless. They moved on from James Franklin because he continued to lose big game after big game. And once you add on to the fact that not only could he not win the big game, but now he's losing games to winless UCLA teams and bad Northwestern teams, yeah, it kind of made it easy. I don't think the athletics department at Penn State needed a rich donor to tell them that, hey, maybe you should move on from the coach that just continues to underperform for you. So there's that. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. We'll get to the Cleveland Browns stuff in a moment. Is it Shedeur time in Cleveland? I did find that very interesting from Jason Fitz right now. When I don't have the audio for you, but if you listen to the interview, you just heard it. I asked him if it was Shedeur time in Cleveland. And he said, no, this is Dillon Gabriel's team. One thing that he brought up is the same criticisms about Dillon Gabriel, about his inability to throw the ball down the field, and whether it's his inability to do it or him not, being able to do it due to the constraints of the play calling, one way or another. Jason said, him working in national media as long as he had, he said he remembers, he went back and looked. Jaden Daniels, everybody said the exact same thing about Jaden Daniels early on, where, he wasn't throwing for a ton of yards. He was not, taking deep shots down the field early. And people had the same concerns about him. But as he got more comfortable, the playbook started opening up. His comfort level started to get more settled in. And he was one of the best, not just rookie quarterbacks by the end of the year, but one of the best quarterbacks. Now, do I believe that Dillon Gabriel is a sleeping giant? I hope so, but I don't think so. I'm not going to be a homer and say I think so. I don't think so, but man, would that be awesome if he was. But what we got to stop doing is there's a couple coaches right now that are doing things the right way and they're getting ripped for it. One of them is Sean Payton over in New York. Sean Payton is in, I'm sorry, not Sean Payton in New York. Sean Payton over in Denver. Sean Payton took over a Denver team that had Super Bowl expectations because of the fact that they went all in to go get Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson was not very good in Denver, especially that first year. And then the second year with Sean Payton, although he was improved from his first go-round in Denver, still just not elite. Not what Denver had given up all those first-round picks for. People want to talk about Cleveland and saying it's the worst trade ever for Deshaun Watson. I put Cleveland and Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson in that same category. Do you realize how much money Denver had to eat? Do you realize how many first-round picks they gave up to get him? And nobody talks about that, but that's besides the point. The point is Sean Payton did the right thing, moving on from Russell Wilson in Denver. And Russell Wilson, and now Sean Payton has Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos, and they've looked very, very good since then. Since they got their rookie quarterback that's now in year 2, they've been phenomenal since. And then you look at Russell Wilson over in New York. Russell Wilson in New York was okay to start, still making a lot of mistakes. They moved on to Jackson Dart, a rookie quarterback, and now look. Now New York is winning some football games, or at least in football games. I know they lost to Denver, said Denver, of course. But the point is that the Giants are getting ripped for moving on from Russell Wilson for Jackson Dart. That he's back. That, you look at the Denver Broncos and that he was getting ripped for the handling of that to move on to the rookie quarterback. Denver did it the right way and developed Bo Nix. Bo Nix also very similar to Dillon Gabriel. A lot of dink and dunk early on. Wasn't a lot of explosive plays, if any. It was a very boring brand of football. But they were winning games and they had time to kind of get through it. The Giants made the right decision to move on from Russell Wilson to go to Jackson Dart. They're getting ripped and being called a bad organization for not doing it correctly. They're doing it correctly. And I think Cleveland's doing it correctly right now with how they're handling the Dillon Gabriel thing. I don't know if I'm a Dillon Gabriel believer, but I believe that if Kevin Stefanski believes that he is the guy and he believes that it is the right thing to do to make it as vanilla and boring as possible to get him acclimated and comfortable out there, then I'm going to sit back and wait for the end game results to kick in before I judge it way too soon. because Denver fans weren't super thrilled with Bo Nix early. Washington fans weren't super excited about Jaden Daniels for the first couple of weeks either. It took your Bengals defense to really kind of wake him up a little. Let's just remember that from last year as far as that goes. But I don't think that Cleveland's handling this thing incorrectly like people are trying to make it out to be. Kevin Stefanski was asked today, hey, how come Shedeur Sanders isn't getting any first-team reps with Dylan Gabriel as the starter? Because Dylan Gabriel was getting first-team reps when Joe Flacco was the starter. Here is Kevin Stefanski's response.
No, I mean, with a young quarterback with Dylan starting, you want to make sure he gets a lot of the reps. Different when you have a veteran like Joe, I would tell you. But still getting reps in a bunch of periods.
So what is Kevin Stefanski doing that's wrong? He's not doing anything wrong. If he believes that, of course, if he believes that the better quarterback is Dylan Gabriel is a rookie. You know, he was getting first-team reps when Joe Flacco was the starting quarterback because Joe Flacco didn't need as many starting reps. He's only been in the league 20-plus years. You know what I mean? Like that makes all the sense in the world, and you guys know it makes sense. But because it's Cleveland, we just want an excuse to rip Cleveland and to rip Kevin Stefanski, who has not been perfect by any means, but I don't think he's wrong in this one. How come Shedeur's not getting it's not fair? It's not fair. Can we stop with the fair thing? If Shedeur ends up being a great quarterback and might be the quarterback for Cleveland, then guess what? Stefanski's fired and the new coach comes in, and now Cleveland has their quarterback. They have a great defense, and things will be fine. And if Kevin Stefanski's right and Shedeur's not the guy and Dylan Gabriel's the guy, then you have your quarterback. You have an elite running back now. Your tight end's fantastic. You need to get some receivers, and you have elite defense. Either way, let it play out. That's where I'm at as far as that's concerned. But all right, back to that Penn State conversation. Keith Tolliver says, so why was Penn State expected to win a national championship? If they couldn't recruit top 10 classes, we all understand why Ohio State is expected to win. They had top 10 class forever now. Is it because of preseason polls? Just wondering. Look, I think James Franklin is a fine coach, but sometimes you get to a point where you've done all you can with that said coach. I mean, he was there for 12 years. Yes, he should be, praised for the way that he turned that program around, not really turned it around, but was able to guide it through those very bumpy waters coming out of that Sandusky trial and that era, unfortunately. Like, we all know how ugly of a scene that was, but James Franklin got them through that. But James Franklin had 2 top 10 classes in the 12 years that he was there, and he did a very good job of coaching up those classes. But to say that NIL is why high-profile coaches are getting fired, the NIL clearly isn't helping them boost their recruiting. They've had 2 top 10 classes in the last 10 years. It's not as if they were a recruiting hotbed as far as that's concerned. They were always very highly propped in the preseason polls. If you want to blame that, I would blame preseason polls, because if he was going to be, if where Penn State is ranked based on their recruiting, they shouldn't be in the top 10 every single year like they are. Rank preseason polls, not, of course, recruiting rankings. But yeah, I just don't think NIL is why James Franklin got fired. James Franklin got fired because they're expected to win. They're constantly in the top 10 to start the season. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because he couldn't beat Ohio State. He couldn't beat Notre Dame. He couldn't beat the good teams. He couldn't beat Oregon in the Big Ten championship game. Couldn't beat Oregon in the regular season this year. Then, on top of that, couldn't beat UCLA and he couldn't beat Northwestern. That's a problem. The Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. 937-518-1410. That's the number to call and jump in on the conversation. We will be right back. Well, the college basketball season is kind of here, kind of isn't. We'll get to the regular season coming up here in just a few weeks, but we did get a taste of college basketball at UD Arena this past weekend. Of course, Penn State at UD. UD comes away with an exhibition win at UD Arena, and then, of course, a part of the CareSource Classic. Wright State also played at UD Arena. No, not against the old Dayton Flyers. You know, that just couldn't happen. I mean, but Wright State in Ohio, the Bobcats out of the MAC went head-to-head on Monday night with Wright State coming out on top. In that one. And now we sit back and wait as the season, inches closer and closer. But I thought this was interesting. I talked earlier about Nick Saban's comments about NIL leading to quick firings of high-profile coaches, as if that's something new. But that's besides the point. But in another episode of Let's Overreact to Something in College Athletics today, how about this story? G League guard London Johnson has committed to Louisville, a source tells On3 Sports. Joe Tipton put this out just a few days ago, but it really started to kind of take off because Tom Izzo, head coach of Michigan State, was outraged and said it's absolutely unacceptable that a player out of the G League can commit to a school in college and come back to college. Now he's a 21-year-old. He's a 21-year-old player. He spent last season in the G League with the Maine Red Claws and the Cleveland Charge. He's expected to have about 2 years left of eligibility remaining. Now, I'm here to again, like I said, on today's episode of Let's Overreact to Something in College Sports. He played for, also, he was a part of the NBA, the G League Ignite team. Okay. As far as overreacting is concerned, I get it because it sounds a little weird. And this is, we pay more attention to basketball within the States than we do outside the country. Although some of the top players in the NBA, if not the best players in the NBA right now, are players that aren't American-born players that are coming from outside of the United States and are coming to the NBA. We know Luka is the biggest star, obviously. Jokic is one of the biggest stars out there. Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, you keep going down the list. And it's a lot of foreign-born players who are coming to the U.S. and becoming stars and leading the NBA at this point. So we pay more attention to – we don't really pay attention to really where some of those players have come from. But if you do pay attention to where some of those players come from, a lot of them do come from overseas, and a lot of them do come from overseas playing for their own professional teams over there. So I tweeted this out earlier, and no one's really been able to give me any kind of answer, but people are losing their mind over G League guard London Johnson, who committed to Louisville. He's 21 years old. He spent the last 2 seasons in the G League, and now he's left the G League, and he's committing to the college ranks, and he's going to play at Louisville. Why is that a problem? But when players outside the country come to the NBA and are drafted in the NBA, from the pro level outside of the States, why is that okay? I actually think that it probably wouldn't be okay to you, but you guys just don't pay attention to this stuff. But I guess I'm not saying I'm a huge fan of this, but this is just how it is now. And I think that, the G League Ignite, that was a thing that was created to try to kind of lure all the top players in the country just to start preparing them for the NBA as early as possible, because this country, from a basketball perspective, does notice that the talent around the globe, around the world, has heavily increased and improved over the years to the point to where the best players in the league aren't American-born players the way that it used to be, of course. And this was done as a way to get all the top high school talent, or whatever coming out of high school, instead of going to college, go straight to the G League and start preparing for the NBA. Some high-profile names have done it, but it never really took off the way that I actually kind of thought it had a chance of, and even that they think it did. And now these players are seeing the money that you can make in college, and they're saying, and if what I saw is true, did you guys see? I don't know what I believe in, not like Kentucky's roster. We made a lot about Ohio State's football team that spent $20 million on their national championship winning team last year. That's one of the big things that people try to use to mock Ohio State's title last year. Well, they should win it with all the money that they spent. Is it Kentucky apparently has about $20 million invested into their current roster right now, as far as that's concerned? When you look at the money that's now in college basketball, college athletics, of course, these guys are going to look to get away from the pros overseas and to get away from the G League and all that stuff. That's why I think college basketball, I think if some of these teams could just retain some of this talent, that's the problem, in my opinion, is more of the transfer portal. NIL is not the problem. It's the transfer portal, in my opinion. I think that's where basketball could take off in this country again, as far as getting back to the popular levels at which it was, because back in the day, you would have stars come out of college and then become stars right away in the NBA. It's no longer the case. The one and dones, it was hard to create a name for themselves in college, and then they weren't a star right away. If you can get these guys back in college for 2-3 years, like you do in the NFL, like college football, I mean, Jeremiah Smith is going to be a household freaking name by the time he's done, if he's not already. Now, that's wishful thinking. That's not what it's going to go back to. But the point is, these G League players, they see the money that's in college. Of course, they want to come back. I just think it's a big-time overreaction. Pro players from outside the country come here all the time. Some of the highest professional levels in some of these foreign countries come here to play. And if they're good enough, they take off. But we don't pay attention to how they get here. We just pay attention to our players within the States, of course. And now there's this fake outrage, including from Tom Izzo. So it's interesting nonetheless, but we will be keeping an eye on that situation. It is what it is. All right. While we're on college basketball, the NBA season is officially here. It did officially tip off last night with the doubleheader. I don't know what you guys thought. I'm a big nostalgia guy. I love nostalgia. I love, working here at WING. We're one of 5 radio stations in the Connoisseur Media umbrella. And nostalgia just literally hit this city. If you're a fan of radio and you're familiar with Z93, Z93 is the ultimate nostalgia experience, if you will. And those who brought Z back did a great job of going back to all the old sounds and the vibe and the feel, the old DJs, and people are losing their minds over Z93 right now because it's the ultimate nostalgia experience. And last night I got to experience that with the NBA on NBC. That was really cool. I thought that the vibe and the sound of the broadcast was phenomenal. And they tried to check off all the nostalgic feels. They had that, they bring back 60-plus-year-old Michael Jordan, who, by the way, I think they pulled the chair out on a lot of you. You all thought Michael Jordan was going to be sitting up on a panel breaking down the games like Charles and Ernie and Chuck and Shaq and those guys. That's not what it is. They literally sat down with him for 1 hour before the season, and they're going to use that 1 hour interview to clip it up for the remainder of the season. It's unbelievably bait and switch on you, but it is what it is. But I love the nostalgic feel of it, the way that they tied in the NBA's past with today's NBA. I loved it. I'm all about nostalgia. I just think it's really, really cool. And I thought the NBA pulled that off last night in their doubleheader. The Thunder over the Rockets, 125-124. The defending NBA champions, the Rockets, come out on top. Or the Thunder, I keep saying the Rockets. The Thunder over the Rockets last night, 125-124. And then Steph Curry and the Warriors over the LeBron-less Lakers. Luka couldn't get it done last night, 119-109, the final in night 1 of the NBA. NBA, the debut for this week continues. The Cavaliers are going to be on ESPN tonight. They are on the road at New York, Cleveland, according to our ESPN bet friends over there. Have Cleveland as a 1.5 favorite. But I'm excited for this NBA season for a lot of reasons. And, one of it is because I can't wait to get the chance to see Deron Holmes play. I was, just absolutely gut-wrenching last year, the fact that he didn't get a chance to play due to that season-ending injury that he had in the first preseason game. We talked about that with Deron when he was in studio with us, early in the summer when he was here for a camp. Him and Obi Toppin were here for their camp over at UD, and he stopped in and hung out with us, and he kind of shared that experience. But, it is going to be fun this season because there's not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 Flyers who are going to be floating around the NBA. The problem is 3 of the 4 Flyers in the NBA right now, they're all play on West Coast teams, and the majority of them play late at night. So for instance, Toumani Camara, shout out to Toumani Camara, by the way, who just got a huge contract extension with the Trailblazers. Toumani Camara is going to be in the starting lineup tonight for the Trailblazers as they're on the road they're welcoming in. The Toumani Camara and the Blazers will be at home. It's a 10 o'clock tip-off, and they're welcoming in the Timberwolves. So if you stay up late, you can watch the former Flyer, Toumani Camara, who I think is just, I think it's all the stories are great of Deron and Obi and Kobe Bryant, who we'll talk about in a moment. But Toumani Camara was one of those late second-round pick. Let's just see what he can turn into. But he's developed into, and it's very tough to find these guys, a beyond impressive two-way player. the fact that he could play at both ends of the floor and the fact that he could do all the little things right. That's why he's earned a spot in that lineup, that starting lineup. Tumani Kamara in the starting lineup in the NBA. All right, Obi Toppin. And, I'm curious to see what his role is going to be with the Pacers now as so many more minutes have opened up due to, their Tyrese Halliburton being out. Young guys are going to have to step up and take advantage of extra opportunities. Obi Toppin and the Pacers, who are going to face the Thunder in an NBA Finals rematch on Thursday night. We'll get a chance to see Obi once again this upcoming NBA season. De'Ron Holmes and the Denver Nuggets, they're going to be at Golden State tomorrow night. That's a 10 o'clock tip-off, another late one. And then Kobe Brea and the Phoenix Suns. I know he was, of course, drafted, out of Kentucky, but spent the majority of his college career with Dayton, of course. Kobe Bryant and the Phoenix Suns will be in action coming up here later on tonight at 10 o'clock. So Kobe Bryant and the Suns. Now, Kobe Bryant, I watched, he did not get a lot of minutes early in preseason, but his minutes started increasing as the preseason games went on. The most recent preseason game he played in was a Suns win over the Lakers. He played in 25 minutes in that one. So you could tell at the beginning he wasn't getting minutes at all in those preseason games, and then he got 12 minutes, and then he got 24. They're obviously with his shooting ability. Kobe Bryant, again, he's a big guard too. He could shoot the three. He could help stretch the floor. I look at him as a poor man's Klay Thompson. I mean, if that's what I see him potentially being able to turn into. Now, can he play as good a defense as Klay Thompson? People always remember the Splash Brothers and just remember their ability to knock down the three. Klay Thompson was one of the best defenders in the NBA for the longest time. So I'm curious what Kobe Bryant's ceiling is as far as defense is concerned. But him and the Suns tonight, 10 o'clock, they'll be in action. Obi Toppin and the Pacers, they'll face the Thunder in a finals rematch tomorrow night. De'Ron Holmes will be in action tomorrow night as well. That's a 10 o'clock tip-off. And then Tumani Kamara coming up later on tonight, a 10 o'clock tip-off there, as they'll be welcoming in the Timberwolves. So Tumani Kamara, Kobe Bryant tonight. Keep an eye out for them. And then De'Ron Holmes and Obi Toppin will be in action tomorrow night as far as that goes. All right, I'm Justin Kinner with you here. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. I see some phone calls coming in. I'm by myself in the studio today, so give us a call, 937-518-1410. I'll get your spot in line during the commercial break. But I want to ask you guys this. I don't know if you guys saw it on Barstool Sports earlier today. They had a big debate about, is Ohio State football, are fans bored? Has this been a boring season? Is it boring to be a Buckeye fan? And while it sounds like a stupid question, I've had this conversation with you all before. It is amazing how popular it is to be a Buckeye fan, considering we wait all season for the season. We wait all year for the season to get here just to be entertained for maybe 1 or 2 games a year. I understand the question. Do you guys? We'll discuss when we come back. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Don't go anywhere.
Now that I'm a dad, I can't stop thinking about what would happen to my kids if something happened to me.
All right, and we are back. Justin Kinner with you here, 4:30 here in the Miami Valley, 937-518-1410. If you missed your conversation with Jason Fitz, we talked about the Bengals and Joe Flacco, the Buckeyes, of course, heading into the bye week as they prepare to take on what was supposed to be a top 5 showdown with Penn State. That's no longer the case. Like I shared yesterday, I was like, look, this game is it's not what we thought it was going to be, but at the same time, Penn State still does have a lot of talent on this roster. The reason that this team was projected to be a national championship contender is because of how talented it is. Now, they have not played like a championship contending team this season, which led to the firing of James Franklin, as we talked about earlier. But the bottom line is that this team, they've lost everything that they wanted to play for coming into the season. So now it's about finding something to motivate them to play for to close out the season. And although there's still a lot of football left to be played, this team has one more opportunity to do something to at least make this season not so miserable considering the circumstances. And that's beat Ohio State. If they could beat Ohio State, all right, if they could find a way to knock off the Buckeyes, that's the best case scenario considering the circumstances. They're not going to make the playoff. They're not going to win a national championship. They're not going to be able to fix any of the issues that they've had that have led to this point. But what they can do is beat Ohio State, and they'll at least have that to remember for what they accomplished this season. Or it might make it worse and just say what could have been. You know, what happens if you were able to beat the teams you should, like Iowa and, Northwestern and UCLA, and then a win over Ohio State puts you right back in the championship driver's seat. But too little, too late as far as that goes. I don't know if you guys saw this. The guys over at Barstool, I thought this was hilarious. So Brandon Walker just said he was mad at a question that was thrown his way about, is it boring being an Ohio State fan? Now, at first I thought it was a dumb question. Like, why would it be boring to be an Ohio State fan? I mean, all this program does is win. They win constantly. They went through a little tough 5-year stretch where they weren't able to beat the elite teams, but they still just kept winning. Imagine being such a good program that even down years are 2-loss seasons. That's how elite of a program Ohio State is. In fact, you can argue that they're one of the few programs that, if maybe the only program that hasn't really significantly been impacted by the portal or NIL or anything. I mean, this team, a down year for them. Think about down years for other teams. A down year for Ohio State is a 2-loss season. Ohio State, what they've been able to do, even with this Ryan Day run, coming off the Urban Meyer run, coming off the Jim Tressel run, my goodness, no other program has been more consistent than Ohio State over the decades. They don't have peaks and valleys. If you want to count the Luke Fickell 1 year, oh my gosh, they were down for 1 year. Outside of that 1 year, this has been a double-digit win team pretty much every season, and they're right there in contention for playoffs, bowl games, national championships, all of it. They've won a national championship in every decade since 2000 at this point. They know what the hell they're doing. But I did understand the question. Is being a Buckeye fan boring? I got the question because I've asked this question in a different way before. Isn't it wild how we wait all season? We wait all year for the college football season to get here. We can't wait for Ohio State season to get here. How many Ohio State games are you truly excited for every year? This isn't a knock on Ohio State. This is almost just a product of them being so dang good that we don't respect any Buckeye opponents consistently. I don't care about the Big Ten. I thought the Big Ten was improved this year. Illinois is proven to be, an overrated team. Washington, everyone was going to bat for them, including me. They got their doors blown off by an average Michigan team. Michigan's not as good when they're not cheating. They're solid. This is what they were. Like Michigan's doing now, the last 2 years, what they did before they started cheating, and good, physical, hard-nosed football team. They're winning games, but they're not winning games. They were winning games thanks to Connor Stallions, and now that whole little scheme's thrown out the window, they're right back to what they were. They recruit okay. They have good players. They're solid. They're going to win some games, but they're not a threat. The Big Ten's down. It's this year. It's not as good as what I thought it was, and it's definitely not as good as you thought it was. If the fact that Indiana is your second best team in the Big Ten, maybe that's a problem. I don't know. Maybe Indiana truly is good. I mean, they're the number 2 team in the country. They did beat Oregon by double digits. They've beat they faced 2 top 10 teams this year, and they beat them by a combined 60 points. So they've done the work on the field, but have they done enough to pass your eye test? I guess that's the next big question. Sure, you beat Oregon, but how good is Oregon? Now, I like Oregon. I think that was a hell of a win. But clearly the Big Ten is not what we thought it was. So when people ask the question, is it boring being an Ohio State fan? How is it exciting to be an Ohio State fan when you wait all year to get to the season, and yet there's only 2, maybe 3 games that are worth a damn? I mean, I'm bored right now. I think it's a fair thing. Like, I got a little anxious about the Washington game. Minnesota, I had no excitement for that. Illinois, I was interested in it, but I wasn't excited for it. Wisconsin, yawn. They're going to play Purdue in a few weeks. Okay, I'm not excited about that matchup. UCLA, they're a great storyline as they've gone on this little win streak since firing their coach. But Penn State, who just lost to Iowa and Northwestern and UCLA, the one game that we had to look forward to after Texas in week 1 was this one, and now we get that one taken from us. I don't get why Buckeye fans got so defensive when it was asked, is it boring being a Buckeye fan? I don't know how you can say it's not. It really is. Like, Buckeye season, technically now in the 12-team playoff era, we're all just sitting here. Ohio State season doesn't even technically start until the week of Thanksgiving. In the build-up to Michigan, the Big Ten championship, and sometimes the Big Ten championship isn't even that good of a game for them. And then, of course, the college football playoff. I had a blast last December. And into January. I mean, that's the most fun I've had as a Buckeye fan in quite some time. But man, oh man, like Grambling, Ohio, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Purdue, UCLA, Rutgers, and you could even say Penn State in discuss now because Penn State's not good. So I have no problem saying that, yes, it has been boring to be a Buckeye fan so far this season. Have you guys enjoyed it? I enjoyed week 1 and the win over Texas. But we've even learned since then that Texas, whatever, at least it was Texas. We had fun with that one. Have you had fun since that Texas game as a Buckeye fan? Be honest. That was August 30th. It's going to be November here in 2 weeks. All right. That was, we're about to head into November. It was August, the last time we watched a Buckeye game and had fun with it. I went to the Grambling game. Oh my gosh. I wish if it wasn't for the bands, we would have left at halftime. All right. Like Ohio, Washington, Minnesota. I'm going to keep saying this. Of course it's been boring this year, and it's boring most seasons. But it is crazy. That's how crazy Buckeye fans are, that we can't wait to get to a season that we know we're only going to be entertained for maybe, if we're lucky, 3 or 4 games a year. 3 or 4 games a year. That's it. Now, I will say, Ohio State, their schedule over the next couple of seasons, it does pick up a bit. I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm excited that Indiana's on the schedule, assuming Kurt Cignetti keeps his train rolling. But over the next 2 seasons, Ohio State is going to be playing at Texas, at Indiana. I mean, Nebraska, okay, but Illinois, they're so over the next couple years, you're going to be at Texas, at Indiana, at USC, home against Oregon. You still have your Michigan matchup, of course. Alabama, Oregon, USC, Michigan. Like, there's at least going to be more games over the next couple of years that we could circle and say, let's go. But this season's been brutal. I'm not going to lie to you. I know they're the number 1 team in the country. I get it. So Kev said, let me have your tickets for the Penn State game then. Listen. All right, rock, paper, scissors. If you win, you get the tickets, Kev. No, I'm joking. I don't want to give up the tickets. It's all about the beer and the shoe experience at that point. I don't really, but the Penn State game, that would have been the first big game I could have gone to. That's not true. I did go to the Rose Bowl. But the first big game at the shoe. I always have to go to a MAC game at the shoe, or no disrespect to Grambling, but Grambling. Like, I wanted to see a top 5 showdown. I had a chance to sell my tickets and get a crap ton of money for them. And I'm like, no. It's going to be a top 5 showdown. Now that it's not, I want to sell them. I can get $75 a pop. Nah, I'm just going to go. But no, I saw the Barstool argument earlier. I got a kick out of that because I get what they were trying to do and make it more explosive than what it was. But let's be real. It is crazy that we are sitting here as Buckeye fans, or at least as me. They're the defending national champions. They're the number 1 team in the country. They're undefeated. There's really no real threats moving forward until we get to Michigan. And, it's just, I don't know the next game. I'm not looking forward to any games coming up. I look forward to game day. There's just something about the vibes of college football. But overall, man, oh man, there's just nothing that I'm warm and fuzzy about when it comes to Ohio State until we get to Thanksgiving week. And that preparation for Michigan, Big Ten championship, And then, of course, hopefully a 4-game run in the college football playoff. So there you go. But yeah, the next couple of years, though, there's going to be a lot more games that I kind of circle, but like, Indiana, there's Texas, Indiana, let's see, Illinois, USC, Oregon again, at Oregon. So you get a lot of those bigger games, since the expansion. The fact that the Big Ten had the expansion for a couple of years now, and they haven't played USC yet, that changes, of course. Oh, look at this. I think it's our guy. I think this is, I should just say, no, you're not allowed to call in when you're in the building. I hope you're not calling from the building.
I'm not calling from the building.
Oh, you're gone again. Huh?
Yeah, I'm out of here. I'm out of this joint. No, enlighten me. What is going on? What is your gripe with VRSA Buckeyes today?
There's no gripe with them. It was so Barstool had a little clip that they shared earlier today where someone just said it must be boring being a Buckeye fan because there's just no good football ever. And it wasn't a shot at Ohio State like they're not good football, but there's just never any good games. And they're right. I mean, we're spoiled. Ohio State's fantastic. I'm not even saying anything about them, but the games suck. These games are boring. These games are just horrendous. I'm glad they have a bye week this Saturday. They're going to provide me as much excitement on a bye week as they do when they play Purdue or anybody else at this point. So I got the question.
So just to make sure I don't say nothing crazy, we are on the air, right?
Check with the yeah, maybe. Yeah, we should be. I haven't got an off air.
Okay, because I'm calling from the car. Okay. Duly noted. Okay, so I totally get what you're saying. I get it. I watched the Buckeye games all the way through. But yes, obviously this is not a Buckeye problem. This is a others problem. Is what you're saying?
Yeah, like the Illinois. I was hoping Illinois would have been a bigger threat. I'm disappointed in Penn State. Like Ohio State, they're carrying their end of the bargain here, but everyone else not so much.
You were selling that Washington game, boy. You were selling it.
I wanted it.
Well,
because Michigan's just that good.
Yeah, apparently so. Apparently the cheaters up north are that good that's the team that we have the biggest problem with, which is fine. I too am disappointed in Penn State for a multitude of reasons. Obviously, them losing to Oregon. Not the end of the world. It was overtime, but then the loss to obviously UCLA, and then another loss to Northwestern. Them losing their quarterback for the season. Obviously, them firing James Franklin. It was just a cluster for them. What did you think of Penn State firing James Franklin?
Maybe in the middle of the season, a little rough, but at the same time, it wasn't like they fired. If they would have fired him after Oregon, I'd have been like, yeah, that's ridiculous. But he did lose to a winless UCLA team. Kind of think is still a little too quick to pull the trigger, but at the same time, this wasn't just because he lost those games. There's a lot of drama behind the scenes too. The anxiousness between him and the athletic director. It just seemed like the time had come. I wish it would have come after the season to give him time to salvage it, but there was nothing else to salvage, I guess, in the eyes of the powers that be.
Yeah, I thought that, hey man, I thought he earned the right to have a fix-it year because it's almost like, hey, yeah, we know we went to the playoffs last year, but it didn't matter. So basically everything that fans said, like, oh yeah, you made it to the playoffs, but you beat SMU, you beat Boise, you didn't beat a big dog, so that don't count. So like it was almost like the fans were involved in inspired. So I thought that James Franklin deserved and earned the opportunity of fix-it year. Now, if you come back the following year and you have losses like this, obviously, yeah. But in today's college football climate where Florida's fired their coach after a win, like coaches are getting fired in the middle of the season because they want to get on the next gravy train to see if they can grab the next hottest assistant or next big name out there. I mean, what school out there isn't calling Nick Saban, checking his temperature right now that has an opening that doesn't even have an opening? Who's calling Nick Saban or calling Lane Kiffin, because Lane Kiffin's name's always attached to the hottest jobs out there. So, I mean, in today's college football climate, like that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, and I opened up the show talking about that. or I disagree. Nick Saban said NIL is to blame for why all these high-profile coaches are getting fired. And I said high-profile coaches have always been fired. We've always felt like schools pull the trigger a little too quickly. Does it play a role in it? Yes, but it's not the driving force. I mean, he tried to make it sound like NIL is exactly why, that Franklin was, canned and others, this, that, and the other. I just disagree with that. We can't blame NIL for every single thing out there. The expectations to win championships has always been there. It's not like all of a sudden it's just there because of this. Plus, Penn State, I looked at it. They've only had 2 top 10 recruiting classes in the last 10 years under James Franklin. A lot of it has to do with him underperforming based on the preseason polls coming in. They're in the top 10 preseason rankings every single season, it seems, and they always seem to finish significantly lower than where they're projected to coming into a season. I just think that it run its course. But yes, I agree with you. I disagree with you. I don't think he should have got another year after this, but I think he should have been able to coach through the season. But obviously the stuff behind the scenes led to the pulling of the plug.
Yeah, I'm not privy to everything going on behind the scenes. I just look at like what Coach Saban is saying about NIL. I think I understand what he's saying because it's almost kind of like a professional type of vibe because you can't fire the players. The person that you can fire is the coach because once the players are locked into their NIL situation, you're locked in until the end of the year. So you can't punish them. Most of these NIL situations are paid up front. So you can't get rid of them. The only power that you do have is firing the coach for not getting it done, especially like when you go to the coach and you ask him, what can we do to fix X, Y, and Z? Oh, well, get me Jim Knowles from Ohio State. That'll fix our great defense and make it even greater. So you go outspin Ohio State to get Jim Knowles. So guess what? There's a domino effect. Oh, I need this guy from this wide receiver from Syracuse. He's going to cost $1 million. Okay, we go get you the receiver from Syracuse. Oh, I need X amount of dollars to keep my quarterback from going pro. All right, we pay the quarterback and keep going pro. Oh, we still not winning. Oh, we're not winning the big game, or we're losing big games as well. And games we're supposed to win. You're out of here because you're the one that greenlit us spending all this money to retain players and to get new coaches. So that's how I feel like, hey, man, this is on James Franklin because he was the guy that said, hey, get me X, Y, and Z. I need this money.
Hey, can we talk about how Michael Jordan fleeced the NBA for $40 million to sit down for 1 hour so they could just cut that 1 hour interview for the entire NBA season? Can we talk about the biggest fleece job since Deshaun Watson in Cleveland, please?
What about it? Like Michael Jordan is a capitalist at his core. I mean, I'm wearing.
But it's about paying it forward. It's about paying it forward.
That came out 40 years ago. I'm still buying the same sneakers. What don't we know about Michael Jordan that he's all about that moolah, baby?
It's all about paying it forward. After getting that's what he said. It's all about paying it forward.
Paying it forward, yeah. I mean, there's no mystery that Michael Jordan is waiting for this time for NBC to come back. He wasn't going to do this with ESPN or TNT or any other NBA partners. He was going to wait until NBC got it back. He has a great relationship with the network. Obviously, that was in his heyday. All right, you want to pay me $40 million to sit down and talk to Mike Tirico for an hour, and this is going to last from October until June? Sure, why not?
Money well spent. It was. It's Michael Jordan, but he doesn't even say anything. They just talk about him shooting free throws, and you guys drool over that stuff. It's insane. Like it's absolutely insane. You Jordan stands. Like you Jordan stands.
Who are y'all? I didn't even watch it.
Oh, you didn't?
Care less what he has to say.
All right, fair enough.
Care less.
Fair enough.
Like what it was gonna be from the clips that I saw is exactly what I thought it was gonna be. And to be perfectly honest, I'm glad they're not saying, "Hey, who could you beat? This guy or that guy?" Like, I don't want to hear that, man. I don't want to hear that. I think the clips that I saw were genuine answers from MJ. Don't think I would pay them $40 million to get those questions answered. But I mean, hey, it's bringing in the beloved rating.
Well, we got bills to pay. We do. Hit the top of the hour, buddy. Yep. Adios. All right. Kev Nash just called in. He should have stopped it. He was just here not even 10 minutes ago. But good stuff. All right. If you missed our conversation with Jason Fitz, we do have that coming up around the corner. 937-518. That's the number to call and jump in on the convo. as far as that's concerned. But yes, lots to still get into. As I mentioned, college basketball, not really college basketball, NBA, as far as the Dayton Flyers are concerned. Deron Holmes and the Denver Nuggets will be at Golden State tomorrow night, 10 o'clock on ESPN. And that'll be, of course, right after another former Flyer, Obi Toppin, and the Pacers face the Thunder in an NBA Finals rematch in Game 1 of that doubleheader. Nonetheless, Kobe Bryant and the Phoenix Suns, they'll be in action tonight at 10 o'clock. I'm curious to see what Kobe Bryant's role is going to be. He did get in the last preseason game of the preseason. He got 24 minutes in that game. It was the most minutes he played all preseason. So I'm curious to see if that's them kind of really giving him a little bit of a final push before heading into the season. Will we see Kobe Bryant or not? That's the question. I'm actually excited to see. I think his game translates perfectly into the NBA, especially with his ability to shoot the ball. So I'll be interested to see that. And then one guy that we know we will see, who's in the starting lineup, who has had a very great NBA career, Toumani Camara and the Blazers. They're going to be in action tonight as they welcome in the Timberwolves. That's another 10 p.m. Tip-off. It looks like Toumani Camara is going to be in the starting lineup. He just got that nice new extension in Portland, and it looks like he's found a spot, and he's going to be staying put for a while. So keep an eye on Toumani Camara, Deron Holmes tomorrow night, Obi Toppin tomorrow night, but Kobe Bryant, Toumani Camara both be in action tonight. We'll, of course, every week on the show continue to keep you updated on their performances throughout the season and keep you updated on schedules for when they'll be playing and all that type of stuff. It is crazy. 4 Flyers in the NBA, 3 of the 4 all on the West Coast. 3 of the 4 that are all 4 play this week, and 3 of the 4 I'll play at 10 p.m. tonight and tomorrow night. So, but Obi Toppin, he saved us with that Eastern Conference team that he plays for, nonetheless. But either way, okay, good stuff. Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio, 937-518-1410. If you missed our conversation with Jason Fitz, we have that coming up next right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM.